Right, guys, welcome back to the channel. So it's the Lord's Day, it's a Sunday, but that's not going to stop us talking about all the evil that's going around the world at the minute. So we have a guy here, the Gilgo Beach serial killer, Rex Heuermann, I believe you call him. And we'll get the correct pronunciation of his name just in a minute. I'm reading this article. And this guy is alleged to be the Gilgo Beach murders. If anybody knows the Long Island serial killer, this guy is decades long. They've been looking for this guy now. I'm going to be reading from an article from I do believe. It's from the Telegraph, I believe. Just let me check to make sure that is correct. I think it is the Telegraph. And what you need to know about this, right? There's massive conspiracies into the Gilgo Beach murders, the Long Island serial killer, because there has been a cop accused of doing this. I talked about this months ago on my channel. And I have to speak about this now because there's so much messing about when it comes to this. I can't curse just yet. I have to wait to the 5-minute mark on a live stream. But a cop has been accused of this. Whistleblowers accused a cop of being the Long Island serial killer. There's actually a few in the area, but they think it was localized to one person. Now, they have caught a guy over the past couple of months, Rex Heuermann, I believe his name is, and they're trying to pin it on him now. Granted, the evidence is overwhelming that it is this guy. Let's go through the article in this live stream. Let's find out what they're saying about him and what he done. We're going to pick through what the police are saying, the new task force that was put in to catch these people, to catch serial killers. And I believe this new task force is just as corrupt as the last one. If anybody knows about this case and about the cases surrounding New York, that it's one of the most corrupt places in the whole of the United States. And when it came to catching serial killers, nobody wanted to pass the blame for not sharing information. They would keep information to themselves and they wouldn't share it with other districts because they wanted to be the precinct to catch a certain serial killer. And they didn't care about the victims. They only really cared about them getting the glory of catching the serial killer. And then it turns out that one of their own lived in an area where lots of women was going missing. This was a cop. He was smoking crack. He was taking drugs. There was women coming to the house. And in this area of Long Island, a very, very wealthy area, lots of women would go missing, and some women would flee from the house and tell horror stories. And essentially, this cop was able to get away with it. And he, I don't even think, I think he lost his job, but he didn't do any time for it because they couldn't find the evidence. So let's look into this now. Now, if you're watching live or if you're watching after, it doesn't make a difference. If you're watching this after the fact, remember, smash the like button, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Like and subscribe and hitting the notification bell is the only toll you have to pay here. And share, guys, just share, copy link the clipboard, make a little social media post, send to your friend on Facebook or WhatsApp Messenger. Sharing is caring and spreading the word is good. This is a new subject. I'm going to be doing live streams 2-3 times a week talking about subjects like this. There's lots of stories that you're not hearing. You're not hearing about this serial killer. There's many active serial killers right now in the world that are active. There's a few in India that aren't being talked about. There's a possible one in Australia. There's many in politics that we can't speak about, but especially America. And this is one that they have caught. Let's go through the evidence now. Let's find out, is this guy the actual killer? We'll have Solway in the house here. Solway is always the man that comes in. Ronan in the building. Solway in the building. The man, the myth, the legend that is Solway. He's always here to support me. Massive respect to you, Solway. But as I say, Solway, I'm going to be doing these wee live streams. I enjoy doing the live streams. And I want to speak about this serial killer because this is a deviance that goes far beyond satanic. This guy played with the victims' families. He would steal the phones after he killed these women. He would take their phones and he would ring their families and taunt the families saying, ha ha, look what I done. There's nothing you can do about it. So let's get into the article now. Let's find out. And on a side note, if there's anything that you want me to speak about, if there's anything you want me to do a live stream about, just leave it in the comment section. Leave a comment or contact me on social media. All my social media links can be found in the comment section and description too. Not yet. I'll do that after, but after this live stream's ended, you can find all those links there. or just leave it in the comment section and I'll look into it. If it's the weird and wacky, a serial killer, or something to do with an area, it doesn't matter what the subject is. If you want me to speak about it, leave it in the comment section, and I will, if I think it's important enough, or if it's important enough to you as my subscriber, I will look into it, and I will do a video, or I will do a live stream about it. I do have an expert coming on that actually speaks to serial killers. I had him on my channel last year. Sean Warner is coming back on. He speaks to active serial killers in the United States. His friend was killed by a serial killer, and Sean is coming on next week. I don't know if we're going to do a live. Sorry, this week, not next week. I don't know if we're going to do a live or maybe a pre-recorded. But he is going to be coming on, and he's got some in-depth knowledge in the active serial killers in America right now. He is a wealth of knowledge. So let's get into the article now. Let's find out what this guy got up to. So let me just change the setting here. So maybe I'll make it a wee bit smaller so we can read the headline. So let me go in here. I'm not going to be able to read the comments for a while here, but if you just want to listen in, this article goes in depth. So we've got Vanda, very nice to see you. Sean Wayne, the man himself. So let's get into it now. Let's find out pizza crust, burner phones, and his wife's hair. How Long Island police tied Rex Heuermann to the Gilgo Beach murders. Now, what's interesting about this, and I have to stress this, there has been multiple suspects. The police are complicit in cover-ups in regards to the Gilgo Beach murders. That was told in the Netflix documentary. I do believe it's the same one. I know there's a few active serial killers in the area, but I do believe this is the same story. If it's not, I apologize. I'll look into it. I'll do a separate video on that. But you have to understand this, that New York State is one of the most corrupt places on planet Earth when it comes to policing their people. There is cops that had the finger pointed at them as being this serial killer, and weird things started to happen. And these cops smoked crack, they took drugs, they liaised with criminals, and nothing got done about it. And now they're pinning it on this guy. Now let's actually find out if it is this guy, because I can tell you now, I don't care how well this article is put together. I know the backstory to this case, and it would make your toes curl, especially when it comes to the cops. So let's get into it now. It's taken 13 years, but Suffolk County Police finally say they've caught the serial killer who dumped his victims along the shores of the Gilgo Beach, thanks to a pimp's tip about his pickup truck, a stash of burner phones, his wife's hair, and a pizza crust. What in the actual fuck is going on? And there's the good looking dude there. He was a big guy. He looked like an ogre. He was like 6'6", and this guy was scary. He is scary. He's going to go into prison as a serial killer. He'll probably get done for this year. I don't know if he's been done just yet. I'll follow the court proceedings. But this guy is scary. Let me just change the settings to this here. Let me just change this. Right. So over the last year, between March 2022 and June 2023, the suspected Gilgo Beach serial killer Rex Heuermann repeatedly looked online for updates in the investigation, police say. He searched for details about the victims and their families. He Googled the use of new phone technology in the case and looked for podcasts and documentaries about the murders. Now, this is really, really, really scary, because I talked about this guy months ago. I wondered, did he see my video about himself? It wasn't actually about him. It was about the cop that I thought was this serial killer. And he even took a keen interest in the newly launched task force headed up by newly appointed Suffolk County Police Commissioner Rodney Harrison that was actively hunting for him. Now, the reason why there was a new police commissioner was because the old police commissioner, I do believe, was very corrupt and had links into this whole story. I could be wrong about if that was the that commissioner, but there was a commissioner that was linked in with this whole case that wasn't giving out evidence, that was actively hiding evidence in regards to this case. And we all thought it was him. But a new person's came in, and I don't care what way Netflix tried to paint, the new commissioner and the new police force is like their shit wouldn't smell. But I'm telling you now, the apple doesn't fall too far away from the tree. Cops don't rat on each other. For up to 16 years, police say he had gotten away with brutally murdering young women and dumping their bodies along the shores of Gilgo Beach in Long Island. Now, big up Long Island. I've got a brother that lives in New York. I've got a brother that lives in around that area, right? It's a beautiful place, beautiful people. But guess what? It's full of very rich people with fuck all to do. And then they end up doing this shit. As body after body lay undiscovered, he added more victims to his graveyard, prosecutors allege. Then, in the late 2010s, a search for another missing woman led authorities to the grim discovery. But the suspect's time still wasn't up. No, because this guy went on and on and on. I didn't think they were ever going to catch this guy. This is why I thought it was police, because they knew what they were doing. For more than a decade, the accused killer continued to go about his day-to-day life, going to work as an architecture firm in Manhattan and coming home to his wife and 2 children. So this geezer had a wife and 2 kids, and allegedly he was going out and he was murdering women. So let that sink in. He seemed just as baffled by the lack of arrest as the local residents and victims' families, who questioned why police had not been able to catch the killer. Because for decades and decades and decades, you had a cop in New York that was actively covering up evidence to do with this case. That's why. That's why. Do you know what I mean? Just looked at the chat there. And there are some of the victims. Now, there's more victims. There's more victims, guys. These were beautiful looking women. Some of them were sex workers. He chose a specific type of woman, but he's seen these sex workers as disposable, as disposable as the disposable e-cig I bought from the shop. These were objects to him, regardless if it was a cop or not. I think there was a whole series of people that was involved in this. I don't think it was one serial killer. I think there was a few. I think it was a group of them, and the NYPD was involved in this. Some branches of the NYPD. When you look into the case, you'll see why I think that. And I'll be doing maybe part 2 I'll do on Wednesday to break down why I think that. He even searched for the answers to questions, including why could law enforcement not trace the calls made by the Long Island serial killer, and why hasn't the Long Island serial killer been caught? Court documents state. So that means he was, oh, they haven't caught me. So he's searching, why haven't they caught him? What, he's looking to see if they've got any leads on who it could be. Was he looking over his shoulder? Did he have an inkling that he was under surveillance? Who knows? Or after all this time had passed, did he think he might never get caught? Of course, he's a serial killer. He's, if hypothetically speaking, if this is a lone guy just out killing women because he can, just a sick sadist, then of course he thought he could get away with it, because these serial killers are narcissistic sociopathic traits, narcissists in their own life. Then last Thursday, as he left his office in Midtown after a day's work and walked along a busy Manhattan road, a group of soot-clad men approached and surrounded him. The gig was finally up. Rex Heuermann, a 59-year-old married father of 2, professional architecture Manhattan business owner and Long Island native, was arrested and charged with the murders of Megan Waterman, Melissa Bartholomew, and Amber Costello. Now, we're going to get into Amber Costello in a minute, because as I said, I've seen this article today, and I think this is what the two articles linked between the cop who I thought was a serial killer, because in the documentary I watched, Amber Costello came up in that. They thought there was a series of different serial killers. I think there was, but I think they were all connected. He was also named as the prime suspect in the murder of a fourth woman, Maureen Bernard Barnes, who was last seen alive in New York City in the early June 2007. This goes deep, guys. This goes way, way back. This guy's been active. And for you to be active in the state of New York, think about that. The state of New York. A police force that has that many resources. Tell me I'm crazy here for thinking that this guy had connections, that this guy didn't act alone, that this guy maybe had connections in with the NYPD. It's taken 13 years, but Suffolk County Police finally say they've caught the serial killer who lured in sex workers, brutally murdered them, and then dumped their bodies and dumped their bound and wrapped bodies along the shores of Gilgo Beach. What led them to the suspect killer was laid out in court documents as prosecutors asked the judge to deny him bail. Of course, this motherfucker shouldn't get bail. You you give this motherfucker bail. He's the biggest flight risk in the world. He's flying off to Mexico, Tijuana, and he's having himself a good old mighty time. It consisted of a pimp's tip about his pickup truck, a stash of burner phones, sadistic online searches, phone calls taunting victims' families, his wife's hair, and guess what? A fucking pizza crust. They caught him because of a pizza crust. So let's look into this and let's find out if there's a couple of conflicts of interest, because I do believe this has maybe got to do with DNA. And I'm going to let you into a little bit of a secret here. When it comes to DNA, forensic science, and the NYPD, there's a lot of fuckery that goes on. Starting off, sighting off pickup truck. The first piece of the puzzle came when a witness in the Costello case revealed details about a vehicle that a client was driving when she was last seen alive. Costello, who worked as a sex worker, was seen alive on the evening of the 2nd of September 2010 when she left her home in West Babylon. One night earlier, witnesses said that a prostitution client had come to her home, but the client was subjected to a ruse where a man posing as Costello's outraged boyfriend showed up and made him leave. In a move to swindle the client out of cash, a witness, Costello's unidentified pimp, said that the client was driving a first-generation Chevrolet Avalanche. The next day, the same client contacted Costello to meet her, but said that he wouldn't come to her home because of her boyfriend, the court documents stated. So, this is what I fucking think. I fucking think that this motherfucker was not acting alone. I think this geezer had multiple people working for him, setting him up these little ruse here and there, so then he could, I don't know, isolate certain women, maybe bring them to a party, have a little fun and game with them. Do you know what I mean? It's just my thoughts. Do you know what I mean? Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I'm crazy. It's like a Ted Bundy guy, 100% Ted Bundy guy. It's like a 100%. This motherfucker was sadistic, but I'm telling you now, this motherfucker had links in with the NYPD. I don't give a fuck. I'm not from America. I don't speak any of that hillbilly talk. I'm from Ireland. I'll say it how I've seen it. I've seen both sides of the coin here. This motherfucker had help, and I'm just saying how I see it. Now let's get back into it. Costello left her home and was never seen alive again. The details of the vehicle came to light last year as a new task force was assembled in January 2022. We're going to get into that in a little minute. To solve the serial killings once and for all. The task force reviewed the evidence gathered in the case, and investigators interviewed Costello's pimp in the spring of 2022. Now, that motherfucking task force could be the greatest. It could be the Avengers for all I care. But that task force, where's that badge? backs the blue. There's nothing wrong with it. I back the blue myself. Fair play to them. But these motherfuckers look out for themselves. These people were assembled by people that are involved with corruption. I'm not saying the task force is corrupt, but the people that are controlling the task force, don't look into that. That's not good enough evidence. Throw that out. Circumstantial evidence. Maybe even throwing a task force off the scent. If you look into this case, you'll see what I'm talking about. Was assembled in January 2022 to solve the serial killings once and for all. The task force reviewed the evidence gathered in the case. I read that part. He told officials about the suspect in the green Chevrolet Avalanche, telling them he didn't know the man's name, but that you might want to look at him. Well, I would like to look at that pimp. Is he a procurer of women? He is, because obviously he's a pimp. He sells women for his own monetary gain. But why is he grassing then? Why not grass? Why did it take him so long to grass? In March 2022, a registration search showed the local man, Mr. Heuermann, owned a first-generation model of the truck at the time of the Costello's disappearance. He also matched the witness description of the man believed to be the killer, a large white ogre-like male in his mid-40s, around 6'4" to 6'6" tall, with dark bushy hair, a big oval-style 1970s type eyeglasses. This motherfucker was scary. This was Shrek. This was the pink Shrek. You seen this guy in a bar, you're walking out. As described below, this was significant because a witness to the disappearance of Amber Costello identified a first-generation Chevrolet Avalanche as the vehicle believed to have been driven by the killer, the court documents state. Now, you're going to say to me, Ronan, wow, there's fucking evidence for you. Shut the fuck up. No, what I'm saying is the police force hid evidence in this case. They diverted other task force prior to this task force away. They stopped police and other districts looking into things. The FBI tried to look into this case, and I think it was the commissioner at the time that the finger was being pointed at. He stopped the FBI looking in on it. It's a known fact now that commissioner was a narcissistic sociopath that liked to smoke crack and sleep with prostitutes. So what I'm trying to say is, okay, it looks like it's really bad here, but are they throwing this guy under the bus as the main guy because they've uncovered a ring of elitist activity? So we're going to get rid of maybe the lower ranked one and blame it on him. Maybe he did. Maybe he was complicit in a few of these. But as I said, I don't think he acted alone. As described below, this was significant because a witness to the disappearance of Amber Costello I read that part. Let's move on. Suffolk County Police Commissioner Rodney Harrison told New York Daily News this was the turning point in the investigation and the moment that authorities zeroed in on Mr. Heuermann. The turning point was the car, he said. Once we got the car who it connected to, that's when the investigation got legs. This investigation had legs fucking 16 years ago. Not now, my friend. The discovery of the car led investigators to hone in on Mr. Heuermann's, including executing 300 subpoenas, search warrants, and other legal processes to obtain evidence to determine his potential involvement in the killings. Very good. That's what you're supposed to do. You should have done that a long time ago because you would have known. The police force would have known. Trove of burner phones. Mr. Heuermann's alleged use of burner phones then led police to make an arrest. At the time when the three women went missing, they had been in contact with a person who was using a burner phone to arrange to meet them. Well, obviously, that's what to do. People often use burner phones for illicit and illegal activities as they are more difficult to trace. But according to the court documents, Mr. Heuermann still managed to make a series of critical errors while using them. And I read a little bit, but I haven't really read up to this point. What I will say is, if you've got a couple of burner phones, maybe you're selling a bit of baby powder here and there. You've got a couple of burner phones. If you're keeping your other phone in your pocket, and your pocket pings off the same tower as your burner phone, you've basically got the same phone. Make sure you keep your real phone at home and you keep your burner phone in your pocket, because if it pings off a cell tower and you need to smash that bad boy and throw it into the ocean, you've got your phone at home that isn't pinging. Uh, let me see. Burner phones used to contact the victims there you go, always pinged off the same cell towers as Mr. Heuermann's legitimate cell phone. The documents show indicating that while using the burner phones, he was also in possession of his cell phone at the same time. The burner phones also pinged off cell towers in two key locations close to Mr. Heuermann's office in Midtown Manhattan and close to Mr. Heuermann's family home in Massapequa Park. Massapequa Park. I'm going to call it Massapequa Park, right? Because I can't pronounce that. My accent does not allow me. So there you go. Always remember that. Some dumb criminals out there that will never ever, they'll always keep their real phone in their pocket because maybe their wife's ringing and they're out selling a bit of baby powder, a bit of the devil's dandruff, a bit of the Mexican grass. And next minute they've got, their phone's pinging, that phone's pinging, and the police have got them in the location. Shows records that Mr. Heuermann's personal cell phone and the burner phones were in the same location at the same time. Boom, got you. And the locations that corresponded with the disappearance and murders of each of three women around Massapequa, Long Island, and Midtown Manhattan. So they're able to get the dates of times whenever his phones are pinging, both his phones, and co-align that with dates and times when they went missing, and dates and times that they made phone calls in certain areas, because he would have had to be in the same area as them for his phone to ping and their phone to ping at the exact same fucking time or around the exact same location. And that's basically to a police officer saying you were there. But in anybody's legal defense, they will say, well, New York's a big place. People will be in the same area at the same time and they wouldn't know it. You can't just, this isn't Ireland. This isn't, this isn't open fields here. This is a city. People will be walking about all the time. And a lot of solicitors and lawyers use that as a defense. Investigators could find no instance where Heuermann was in a separate location from these other cell phones when such a communication event occurred. The court documents state, game, set, match. In the days leading up to Bartholomew's disappearance, she had been contacted by the same burner phone multiple times. The last contact from the phone came on the 10th of July, my birthday, 2009, when she was last seen alive in New York City. Cell site records show the burner phone traveled from Massapequa Park to Midtown Manhattan that day. Then, chillingly, Bartholomew's own cell phone traveled from Midtown Manhattan to Massapequa Park because he got her, put her in the back of the van, and traveled with her. And that phone was pinging, pinging, pinging. And then we're moving on to victim's cell phone and taunting calls to grieving families. Now, this motherfucker was sick because not only did he get sexual gratification from this, he was a sadist. He got personal satisfaction from ringing the families and hearing the pain in their voice. This guy was one sick puppy. Just looking at the chat here, Solway, I don't know what you're talking about. It's clear corruption. Well, look, it's not clear corruption, Vanda, right? It's not clear corruption. But when you look into the case and you see the fuckery that's went on, you'll know what I mean. And there is a connection, but it isn't clear corruption. For me, for clear corruption, I need to have about 15 sources telling me, because you're going to get good cops, you're going to get bad cops. It doesn't mean that there's a ring of people. What I'm trying to say is that if you look at the documentaries made about this and the suspects were cops. It always led back to the NYPD. Now, after an explosive documentary about the Long Island serial killer, the cops magically come up with this. So what I'm thinking is, was there a ring of them? And this is one of the guys that they've used as a sacrificial lamb, because the people and the cops that were involved in this, at the very least, they were sadists. These people were smoking crack. They were abusing prostitutes, sex workers. They lived in a part of, if anybody knows Gilgo Beach, it's a it's a very secluded area, very wealthy area, and it's upper class. And it's very daunting if you go into the area and you're a woman and you're trying to get out. It's like a maze trying to get out of this place. And if you're running in the dark, you can be murdered and nobody would ever see. And there's lots of area for your body to be dumped. Plus, the bodies were, whenever they were dumped, the police refused to look at lots of evidence. And that was coming high up at the time, because the cops at the ground wanted to look into the evidence. But this commissioner at the time stopped the FBI. I think he stopped other intelligence organizations from looking in on it. And he stopped his own cops from looking at certain bits of evidence, which red flagged a lot of things. This guy still, he lost his job and all, but he still refuses to even speak about it. The documentary team asked him about it, and to come on and say his piece, and he refused. This guy knew a lot. This is why I do not think that if this is the serial killer, this was the procure of those women. I don't think that he was doing it just for himself. I think there was a ring of them, and I think the NYPD know that. Um, it's like Feature Man in a way. Also, he was connected to, yeah. Well, I might on my Thursday video, I might make it about Feature Man. My Thursday video, I'm going to do one about Feature Man, because I want to exclusively look into his Hollywood background. Now, let's get back into the article before I start speaking about Feature Man, because I could speak about that creepy bastard for the next 2 hours. Let me click back into the. So now we're going to be talking about the psychology of this serial killer. So victims' cell phones and taunting calls to grieving families. So not only would this fuckwit do terrible things to these women, he would then want other types of gratification by causing harm to their families, psychological harm, by ringing up their families, telling their families what he done to their family member. So do you know what I mean? This geezer's using the victim's phones, and he's not getting caught. And this happened for years. This happened for over a decade. The killer took at least 2 of the victim's cell phones after. Am I on the right one here? I am. Yep. The killer took at least 2 of the victim's cell phones after their murderers as a trophy, and in a sick move called one of the victims' families from her phone to taunt them about what he done. What a sick puppy. Prosecutors say the evidence shows the person was Mr. Heuermann. Following Bernard Barnes and Barthelemy's murders, the killer took and used their cell phones. Barthelemy's last cell site location was in the early hours of the 11th of July 2009 in Massapequa. Now, that was a day after he took her. Now, maybe he was trying to throw off the scent, which is still alive. I don't think he's that sophisticated. There's the guy there. You know what I mean? There's the geezer there. Throughout the next 2 months, the killer then used her cell phone to make taunting phone calls to Barthelemy's family members. In the last one of those calls, answered by a devastated family member, the male caller gloated about killing and sexually assaulting Barthelemy. Prosecutors alleged that Mr. Heuermann made those cruel calls from or in the vicinity of his Midtown office, where his own daughter is now an employee. Records show that each of the taunting calls pinged off cell towers in Midtown Manhattan. This geezer was making calls to victims' families while he was round his daughter. Now, I'm assuming his daughter didn't know any of this, but imagine finding out that your dad is this monster. What do you do? There's nowhere you can go. The family name is ruined. But anyway, that's the least. She's the least victim in all of this. The daughter. Mr. Heuermann also allegedly used Bernard Barnes's cell phone to check her voicemail. The court documents show online searches for illicit images and the Lisk investigation. In the years after the murders, Mr. Heuermann allegedly continued to slip up to his use of technology, as he allegedly continued to use burner phones to elicit sex from sex workers right up until his arrest. So he stopped serial killing, but he went back to sleeping with sex workers. I don't think he did that, because I know that murders happen every day in New York, and these sex workers aren't given the respect because they're sex workers. They go missing all the time. People don't care. All this geezer has to do is change his style of killing. Go from dumping them on the road to dumping them in the ocean. The police don't even look into half the murders that go on in New York. There's shootings every day. Sex workers go missing every day. They don't care because they're sex workers. That needs to change, because these women need protected. Sex workers are not. So, while it showed a pattern of behavior, prosecutors also point to other disturbing activity traced to the cell phone numbers. Court documents show that Mr. Heuermann had Tinder profiles and several email accounts under a series of fake names. He used these accounts linked to his burner phones to search for graphic images of young girls and children and sadistic torture-related pornography. So this motherfucker was a sadist. He took gratification with the suffering of others, a narcissistic sociopath. There, he's there. I hate to say it, mate, but you look like Tucker Carlson. You look like Tucker. Tucker's going to be looking, well, he doesn't look like Tucker Carlson there. Like, he's taking a picture here, right, as if he's got abs. You know, do you ever see those fellas that take pictures of themselves in the mirror? They've got like really, really shredded abs. Mate, you look like a pink Shrek. You look like Tucker Carlson with an extra chromosome. Like, what's going on here? Jesus H. Christ. Searches included girl hog, tide, torture P, and I'm not going to say the next part, but it says 10YO schoolgirl. As well as the disturbing sexual searches, prosecutors say he also looked up images of the murder victims and their relatives and researched podcasts, pardon me, a burp there, documentaries and news stories on the case. I wonder if this motherfucker had seen my video about him. Not throwing everybody off the scent, fuck's sake, but I thought it was a cop. I still do. I think the cop was involved. These included, why could law enforcement not trace the calls made by the Long Island serial killer? And why hasn't the Long Island serial killer been caught? Now, for me personally, myself, is this guy stupid enough to actually search that? Because that seems like a too of a generic search. That's like, you're going to search this. Or that's like somebody stealing their phone and searching this. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm getting too conspiratorial about that. And Long Island serial killer phone call. I mean, what? He also looked for information about the new task force on the case, so he should. You want to see if they were as corrupt as the last. Knowing he was keeping a close eye on the investigation, police kept the developments close to the vest. And I know for a fact that they used phone hacking in this case. They can't actually say that they done that because it's illegal. But put it this way, they send them a little email with a Trojan horse. Then you can take over a man's phone or a laptop. Surveillance footage captured Mr. Heuermann adding credit to one of the burner phones, and he had it on him when he was arrested. Wife's hair. In a bombshell twist, hair belonging to Mr. Heuermann's wife was allegedly found on the bodies of 3 of the 4 victims. Now, this I really want to read this part carefully because I want to know this, because this is where it comes into DNA. Prosecutors say the 2 female hairs had been found on Waterman. One of them on the tape which the killer wrapped around her head. One female hair was found on tape used to wrap burlap around Costello, and one hair was found in a belt buckle used to bind Bernard Barnes, who Mr. Heuermann is yet to be charged over. He did do that one too. To identify the female who the hair belonged to, investigators trawled through the trash at the Heuermann home in Long Island. And here's why that's fucking shit. Because if he has a defense attorney, right, his defense is going to be putting a defense against this, and they'll be saying, look, how can we mitigate all this? How can we get this thrown out? Where did they get their evidence from? Where did they get their DNA evidence from? The trash, right? You can't use evidence found in trash that's been contaminated, unless it's a gun, unless it's like, I don't know, a picture found. Because if I was his defense, I would say, look, that evidence can't be used in court. It was found in a bin. Anybody could have that had access to the public outside. Anybody could have set my client up. I'm not saying they should do him, but let's just think about this for a second here. We know what the American government's like, and we know that police officers have been heavily involved in these serial killings, throwing people off the scent, parties with prostitutes, narcissistic, sociopathic, crackhead cops that were running the fucking show at the time. Nothing's out of the realms of possibility. That's all I'm saying. In July 2002, they recovered 11 bottles from the trash and they were swabbed for DNA, and that is going to be thrown out. Forensic testing found that the DNA on the bottles matched the female hair found at the crime scene, concluding that the hair belonged to Mr. Heuermann's wife. But tell me if I'm wrong. A defense will say that that had access to the public because they were going through this guy's rubbish outside and he could be set up. The accuracy is such that more than 99% of the North American female population can be ruled out according to the court documents, but that doesn't make a difference because the evidence had access to the public in bins. Plus, let's not talk about the contamination from the bins. I'm not backing this guy here. I'm just saying if I was his defense, this is the angle I would be going at. Prosecutors found that the suspect's wife was out of town at the time of the 3 murders for which he had been charged, but that her hair could have been transferred to the crime scene through her husband's clothing or through him using items such as tape taken from the family home. Well, if I'm his defense, I will say, well, if we're going to go by that narrative and you're saying that hers can be transferred in the family home, which is 100% correct, then the evidence that you find in the bin can be contaminated by anybody. And this is why it can't be used. As well as his wife's DNA, Mr. Heuermann's DNA was also found in one of the victims. Prosecutors said that the male hair had been found on a burlap used to wrap Waterman's body before the killer dumped her along Gilgo Beach. When the hair was first retrieved in 2010, it was unsuitable for DNA analysts, according to the court documents. But the hair was kept safely locked away and was submitted for analysts in 2020. A DNA profile came back. Now, to check if it matched Mr. Heuermann, investigators needed his DNA to compare the samples. This January, a surveillance team watched the suspect, saw him chuck a pizza box into trash close to his office in Manhattan. They nabbed the box and found a leftover pizza crust. Last month, court records stated that the forensics came back. It was Mr. Heuermann's hair found on the waterman's body. And once again, as a defense, this motherfucker threw away pizza. They nabbed it. Could they not have called him in and took a swab? Under suspect rules, we suspect this guy of being a serial killer. We're going to take him in, swab him. Why did they have to use pizza crust? This is 2023. This isn't the 1970s. So why did they have to wait for this guy? Why did he have to throw away pizza? This is all suspect to me, especially if you know the back history to this case. Right now, you're going to think that I'm a whack job, right? But when it comes to that DNA stuff, there's a lot of suspect things there that even the prosecution knows that can be debunked by his defense. Why they're doing that, I don't know. They could have went about that a completely different way. If they knew 100% that he was the guy, they could have took him in for questioning, got his DNA, and fucking solidified it there and then. They didn't have to wait for pizza crust. I'll take a few comments. That's pure evilness. It is pure evilness. It's the definition of evilness, and you need to know that this, the people that he was working with, they were worse. It's crazy, Vanda. It's absolutely crazy. It's an interesting topic, though, and there's a few of these guys in America that are getting away with it. Solway, how are you? You're just asking how Vanda is. Right, so he's getting a buzz off it. 100% he's getting a buzz off it. But you have to understand that this goes deep. This goes very, very deep. What I'll do is I'll find out the name of the documentary on Netflix and I'll post it in the comment section. It was just a quick live stream. What's that? 48 minutes, not that quick. About that, I really wanted to speak about that. I'm going to be doing live streams, maybe 2 to 3 a week, talking about these subjects on this channel. So if you do like them, remember, share on other social media platforms. If you're watching this after the fact, subscribe and hit the notification bell. Just share, copy, link the clipboard, send to your friend on Facebook or WhatsApp Messenger. Leave a comment, tell me what you think. If there's anything you want me to look into, leave it in the comment section and I will look into it and do a live stream or a pre-recorded video. I do have a specialist coming on who speaks to serial killers, Sean Warner, who I interviewed for my channel last year. He's a very good guy. He's interested in the whole serial killer thing, and he actually has wrote to serial killers and speaks to certain serial killers on the phone. And he's going to come on and he's going to do a bit of a profiling on Rex Heuermann. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I enjoy these ones. I'm enjoying YouTube at the minute. I'm enjoying the type of content that I'm going to be making in the future. So that is the end of the stream, guys. Thank you very much for tuning in. Big up to Vanda, big up to Solway, big up to everybody that watched. And that's it, guys. Peace out.